Você abriu os olhos, sob a penumbra opaca da tenda de linho grosso, onde o ar quente parecia pesar nas suas narinas, impregnado do cheiro denso e pungente da resina misturada a ervas secas. A areia, fina e suave, escapava lenta entre seus dedos úmidos, enquanto o solo áspero pressionava suas solas calosas. Nesse instante, tudo parecia suspenso no tempo. Você sabia que era o começo de mais um turno silencioso, no Egito Antigo, sob o sol ainda inclemente do poente, quando o calor grudava na pele como uma segunda camada. À sua volta, a tenda erguia-se como um santuário íntimo, recoberta pelo tecido pesado que mal deixava passar a luz. Lá fora, o deserto silencioso expandia-se infinito, suas dunas apagadas pelo crepúsculo que se aproximava. Já era diferente das manhãs, quando o céu era um azul cortante e o vento trazia consigo um frescor passageiro. Aqui dentro só havia o ar carregado, o aroma da fumaça dos incensos queimando no canto. Uma ponte entre o efêmero e o eterno. De certo modo, seus problemas eram mais simples do que os dos técnicos modernos, que lidavam com máquinas barulhentas e redes elétricas. Sua luta era outra, mais lenta e minuciosa, uma coreografia silenciosa com o tempo. Você viu, então, o corpo do gato mumificado repousando imóvel sobre a mesa rústica, o pelo antes brilhante já disperso pela ação da fumaça e do tempo. A rotina, displicente e dura, começava ali. Seus dedos calejados manuseavam com cuidado os pequenos artefatos, anzóis delicados, agulhas finas como fios e o pó branco e granulado do natron que escorregava entre suas palmas. Um gesto sempre igual, repetido com exatidão. Abrir as cavidades, retirar os órgãos preservados, costurar a pele seca com a precisão de um ritual que não admitia erros. Cada passo era uma dança lenta, que você conhecia bem e pela qual sua vida dependia. A monotonia silenciosa preenchia o espaço, mas também oferecia certa segurança. Sempre havia um momento de alívio, um suspiro de esperança efêmera. O calor do sol que descia, tingindo o céu de laranja e púrpura, fazia as sombras alongarem-se sobre a areia fora da tenda. A fumaça sagrada subia aos poucos, desenhando danças invisíveis no ar pesado. Um respiro na rotina, uma pequena beleza naquele cenário árido e implacável. Você repetia seus movimentos, sentindo o pó de natron escorrer pelas mãos, ouvindo o silêncio marcado pelo sutil sussurro de cânticos distantes e o ocasional som oco de tambores, sombras do mundo exterior que atravessavam as paredes de tecido. Mas então algo mudou. Um som inesperado cortou o espaço tranquilo, um estalo curto, diferente dos ruídos habituais do deserto. Você virou lentamente a cabeça, os olhos acomodando-se à penumbra, buscando pela origem. Um olhar estranho atravessou as sombras além da tenda. Um movimento quase imperceptível, mas o suficiente para despertar um frio súbito na espinha. A sensação de que algo diferente estava para acontecer. Aquele instante suspenso, onde a rotina se fracturava pela expectativa incerta. Ei, antes que Morfeu te pegue de vez, dá uma conferida rápida se você continua inscrito. Para alguns, o botão sumiu, e eu não quero que você perca as próximas histórias para dormir. Aproveita e deixa um like macio como um travesseiro. Me conta nos comentários de onde você nos ouve e que horas são aí. Sua interação mantém este cantinho de calma vivo. Valeu por fazer parte. You turned your gaze slowly towards the subtle movement at the edge of the dim tent, where the shifting shadows whispered secrets you could almost grasp but never quite hold. The air inside felt thicker now, the heavy scent of resin, blending strangely with a faint trace of something new, perhaps the faint tinge of dry earth disturbed too recently. Your fingers hesitated for a breath, the coarse sand slipping languidly through your grasp before settling back into the rough palm of your hand. Outside, the desert clung to its silence like a breath held too long, every sound swallowed by the vast emptiness. Your heart drifted into a steady but cautious rhythm as you focused back on the task before you. The cat's lifeless form was an ancient riddle, carefully preserved, piece by piece in the ritual you had performed countless times. The natron powder clung softly to your skin, dusting you like the remnants of a dream, fading with daylight. The faint crackle from the burning incense was a delicate thread tying the present to the past, a fragile bridge between your hands and the dry, wind-carved stones beyond the tent. You closed your eyes for a moment and imagined the outside world, the way the sun, now dipping near the horizon, painted the sky in shades of purple and orange that bled slowly into the gathering dusk. You could almost feel the coolness creeping in, a silent invasion beneath the fading warmth, like a hidden hand grazing your skin. The desert's breath turned colder, brushing through the stiff tent fabric, carrying with it the faint murmur of distant drums and the low moan of wind sliding over sand. Carefully, you reached for the slender needle again, your fingers moving with deliberate slowness, tracing the familiar contours of the cat's dried flanks. Each stitch was a silent promise, a careful stitch of life where none remained but memory. The smooth thread pulled taut, the resistance a gentle reminder of the fragile boundary between flesh and shadow. You paused, feeling a sudden tightness in your chest, a quiet awareness that the stillness was not just a shelter, but a weight pressing downward. The routine that usually cradled you had shifted, subtly, almost imperceptibly. Outside, a faint noise seeped through the walls, a soft scrape, not loud enough to be a footstep, but enough to make you freeze mid-motion. Your pulse whispered warnings as you strained to track the source. The fabric rippled lightly, revealing a sliver of darkness that didn't belong. Your breath slowed, inching to the barest spread, as your senses sharpened like the edge of a well-worn blade. You did not move, did not speak. Instead, you became the stillness itself, a shadow folded into the heavier darkness pressing against your skin. The night deepened, thickening the air into something almost viscous. You shifted slightly, the sand shifting under your weight, the noises of breathing and the soft shuffle of your hand against the table, mixing into a low chorus of life held in fragile balance. The incense smoke curled lazily, twisting in spirals that reached upward, like ancient spirits dancing silently just beyond your reach. Time stretched out, elongated by the slow beat of your heart and the endless procession of tiny details. The rough grains of sand brushed across your skin, the subtle change in the air's moisture, the cooling of the stone beneath the tent. Your eyes traced the dim outlines of those ritual tools, the needle's pinpoint gleam, the curve of an old, cracked bowl, the faint streaks of dried resin on the wooden surface, all witnesses to countless cycles of preparation and preservation. In that lingering quiet, your mind revolved softly around the mystery that had settled like dust here. The idle moments pressed against your awareness, like the slow folding of desert wind against the stone, carrying with it a threat not loud or sharp, but patient and slow, extending its cold fingers over your thoughts. Every breath you took felt like a drop of water in a widening well, each one pulling you deeper into a place where time reduced itself to the faintest pulse. You moved your hand gently then, remembering to remain deliberate but cautious as the final stage of the ritual took shape. The needle pierced once more, threading the fragile skin with endless patience. You could feel every minute imperfection, every ripple in the fabric of the cats. Form, as if the creature's quiet history whispered directly into your palm. The incense scent swirled stronger, grounding you even as your thoughts drifted, touched by that faint unease threading through the air. And then, as if drawn by some hidden force, you found yourself compelled to glance again toward the tent's opening. The space where darkness met fabric held a shadow far too still, a shape that refused the slow dance of light and wind. Your breath caught, cool and precise, while a quiet tremor built just beneath your skin, like the barely audible rustle of distant wings. In that stretched moment, you understood. Whatever this was, it did not belong to the slow passage of endless days and careful rituals. This was something new, a change solidifying, like the first cracks in a stone long thought unbreakable. Your fingers tightened, the natron powder shifting softly like ancient dust across your palm, the roughness grounding you, even as your eyes locked onto the figure at the threshold, unmoving, silent, watching. And in that quiet, waiting darkness, a single subtle movement broke the endless stillness. You remain utterly still, even as the fleeting movement lingers on the very edge of your vision. The fabric of the tent shifts almost imperceptibly, whispering secrets in the language of woven threads and dust. The air has become denser, cradling a weight that presses gently against your skin, urging caution without haste. Your hand, resting lightly on the weathered table, feels the coarse grain of the wood beneath your fingers, the same roughness that has held steady through countless rituals, silent years, and heavy sands. Outside, the desert breathes in slow, timeless waves, the horizon sinking deeper into shades of violet and burnt copper. A faint breeze reaches inside, stirring the smoke in lazy spirals that curl toward the low ceiling. That aroma of resin and dried herbs ebbs and flows like a fragile pulse beneath the thick air, a tether between what is and what was. Your eyes shift yet again, tracing the darkened outline where shadow meets cloth, searching for meaning in the silence that has wrapped itself tightly around you. The stillness is punctuated only by the mellow crackle of the burning incense, its thin tendrils like fingers weaving through the heavy air. Your breath is steady, controlled, each inhale drawn with deliberate slowness, tasting the faint bitterness that clings to the ancient timber and coarse linen enclosing you. The sand trickles softly from your hand once more, each grain a tiny cold weight falling back to the floor untouched by time. You reach out slowly, letting your fingers brush the hint of dry earth that has gathered where the tent floor meets the fabric, an uninvited presence. The texture is different, rough, as if the desert itself had found a way inside, carrying a silent warning folded in every grain. Your skin prickles with the unsettling sense that the boundary between sanctuary and wildness is thinner than before. Still, you do not move hastily, because movement invites notice, and notice invites peril. Returning your attention to the serene stillness of the cat's form, you notice its dried flesh, once supple and gleaming, now a fragile vessel, etched with time's slow hand. You feel the fine dust of natron on your fingertips, its cold, almost chalky resistance grounding you in this act of preservation. The ritual does not rush. You know that speed here could break the delicate threads of balance you have so carefully tended. Every stitch you make is a quiet promise to the past, a slow weaving of life's memory into stillness. Each motion is meticulous. Your thumb traces the faint lines where the skin has cracked, your eyes catching the faint glimmer of the slender needle as it threads through. The thread pulls taut, almost sighing beneath your fingers, reluctant but obedient. The task is repetitive, an endless ballet of care and precision. But tonight, that repetition carries a charged stillness, a tension as fine and persistent as the desert spider's web just beyond the entrance. Outside, a faint rustling shifts your senses. It is neither wind nor animal. It could almost be the nervous pulse of the earth, sighing beneath the gathering dark. You hold your breath, a single beat stretching longer than the rest, until the subtle sound retreats, swallowed again by vast emptiness. The darkness presses closer now, folding the tense fabric inward like a closing eye, absorbing what little light remains. You feel the cool touch of the night creeping around your ankles, the warmth from the day ebbing away like a receding tide. Your skin tightens with the sharpening chill, but the small flames of incense glow brighter, casting the familiar scents that anchor you to this moment of silent vigilance. The cat's form is no longer just a body. It is the vessel of the night's secrets, a relic bridging worlds. You pause, hand poised midair, mind flickering to the shadow that waits patiently, unmoving, at the edge of the tense opening. It does not blink or breathe in the way the desert does. Its stillness suggests something older and more certain than time itself. You imagine it watching, unblinking, calculating the slow dance of shadows and silence within this fragile shelter. A single bead of sweat slips down your temple, tracing a cold line before falling into the sand below, where it vanishes without a sound. Your heart pounds low and steady, measured but taut, as you return your gaze to the ritual laid bare before you. Needle and thread, skin and sand, smoke and shadow, each element balanced precariously as the night deepens. The dark figure at the threshold remains, a silent sentinel, a fragment of something almost forgotten, yet impossible to ignore. The tense fabric sways quietly, the only sign of passage in this world, suspended between dusk and darkness, between memory and the secrets yet to unfold. And then a slow, deliberate breath escapes your lips, the quiet acceptance of an ancient truth whispered to you by the desert's cold fingers, a truth you can neither flee nor confront fully, only endure in the measured rhythm of rising and falling shadows. The breath fades, leaving only the scent of resin and the presence waiting just beyond the veil, watching, always watching. You remain motionless, the lingering movement at the edge of your vision, frozen like a faint tremor, caught mid-wave. The heavy fabric of the tent seems to press closer, folding inward, as if to cradle you in an embrace of shadow and silence. The thick, resinous scent coils lazily in the air, its slow spiral a comforting anchor, as your fingers brush once more over the coarse linen beneath you. The grains of sand sift steadily through your hands, each one a tiny, cold pulse marking time in the gathering dusk. Outside, the desert's breath deepens, the horizon bleeding deeper shades of muted purple and soft rust. The wind whispers distant secrets, its low hum threading through the tents like a cautious serpent. You inhale slowly, tasting the faint bitterness of burning herbs carried on the air as your eyes fix once again on the shadow where cloth meets darkness. A subtle rustle brushes the edge of the tent flap. Your heart hovers in tempered stillness, its beats stretching and folding within your chest. The air, heavy with anticipation, grows more tangible, like the cool press of stone against skin. Every muscle remains tuned but relaxed, as if equal parts prepared and resigned. The cat's preserved form rests under your touch, dry and fragile, the natron powder dusting your skin softly, a quiet reminder of many such nights spent here in slow ritual. Your fingers trace the cracked edges of the feline's hollow eyes, slow and deliberate. Each stitch you weave between its brittle skin and fading tendon is a testament to the fine line you walk between life and permanent silence, between tradition and uncertainty. The thread pulls taut beneath your touch, an unspoken vow whispered into the threads of time. Outside, a faint scrape lingers, a hesitant sound swallowed almost immediately by the vast stillness. You resist the urge to move hastily. Instead, you breathe with drawn-out care, the cold desert air curling gently into the tent and settling like an unseen visitor around your ankles. The scent of dry earth, mixed with resin and ash, has deepened, infusing the cramped space with a new layer of presence, as if something ancient has settled just beyond the weave of fabric. The incense smoke winds upwards in slow spirals. Its fragile dance softens the sharp edges of the growing chill. Your eyes dart to the scattered tools laid out on the rough wooden table. Needles gleaming faintly, bowls warped by time, their surfaces cracked like desert bedrock. In this small space, the ritual's timeless heartbeat pauses, then resumes with a steady pulse. As you gather thread once more, your gaze drifts toward the narrow seam at the tent's mouth. The shadow, previously still, now holds to its silent vigil with unnerving patience. It is less a figure or a presence, an immovable weight borne on unseen shoulders. Your breath catches, slow and steady, a single bead of cold sweat tracing the line of your temple before vanishing into the sand below. Your mind stays anchored to the rhythm of routine, sand slipping, thread pulling taut, fingers steady despite the rising tension. The fear that had stirred wears now a dress of quiet caution. You recall the warmth of the sun not long past, the fleeting glow that tinted the sky in fleeting hues of gold and amber. That distant light lingers in your memory like a soft ember, a fragile spark in the tightening darkness. Outside, the desert has shifted imperceptibly, an almost animal stir in the silence, a whispered footfall, or perhaps the slow settling of sand against stone. Your ears strain for any sign, but all is still save for the faintest hiss of wind, pressing against stretched fabric, the muted crackling of incense, and your own measured breath. Time stretches, elongated by patience and watchfulness, folding out across the stillness like the slow rolling tide. You return to the delicate work, each stitch threaded. With a slow reverence, the cat's form seems to hold a secret weight, the memory of pulse and life bound tightly beneath your hands. The powder of natron, cold and dry, seeps into the skin's fragile map, and as you work, the slow dance of preservation unfolds, an echo of countless nights measured by such meticulous care. A sudden shift in the air draws your gaze once more to the threshold. There, between the quivering fabric and the deep fold of shadows, the shape moves with certainty, no longer merely a presence, but an extension of the night itself. Your breath slows, held captive by the moment's stark gravity, and your fingers tighten their grip on the thread. Poised but unyielding, the shadows press closer, thickening into a silent tide washing over the edges of your sanctuary. You feel the cold creeping inexorably upward from the dust and sand, seeping past your ankles, a quiet but insistent intrusion. Your eyes narrow, tracing the still outline that refuses to shift or waver, watching, waiting with a patience older than the stars, beginning their weak shimmer beyond the tent. Your senses sharpen, capturing every faint sound, the soft sigh of fabric, the subtle brush of sand disturbed, the barely audible drumming of distant feet moving far outside the circle of light and fire. Yet the presence remains, a sentinel unmoving in the half-light. And then, as if the night itself had exhaled through the slit of fabric, a pale hand slips slowly into view, a thin, weathered finger tracing the rough weave of canvas like a whispered touch. Your breath hovers between held and released, caught in the fragile space where time folds and unfolds endlessly. The hand pauses, still and deliberate, inviting you to confront the fragile boundary between what you know and what waits just beyond the dark. Your eyes remain fixed on the thin, weathered hand resting just beyond the edge of the tent's flap, its fingers pale and trembling like the fragile branches of a desert shrub barely clinging to life. The faint scrape of nail against rough linen reverberates in the tight air, a sound softened but undeniably deliberate. Your breath slows, pulling the cool might deeper into your lungs, a subtle tremor threading the stillness beneath your ribs. The weight pressing against your skin doesn't lessen, instead thickening, folding the corners of shadow into sharper angles around you. You move with the slow certainty you've practiced all your life, a measured shift of your wrist that barely disturbs the dust settling over your tools. The amber glow of burning incense flickers in the dim, casting wavering shapes against the tent's interior. The smell mingles with the piercing dry scent of earth spilled recently, a fresh intrusion into this world of old secrets and patient ritual. Your fingers graze the coarse thread once more, pulling the fiber taut through the brittle skin of the cat. Outside, the desert exhales, the pulse of dawn still far away. The horizon is a blurred wash of muted violets melting into the folds of night. Somewhere beyond the fabric wall, silence curls like a wide river, thick enough to drown in. But you remain rooted to your sanctuary, the dry grains sifting slowly between your fingers like a whispered lullaby from the unyielding sand beneath. The shadow hesitates, then retreats a fraction, the ghost of movement swallowed by the folds of canvas. Yet the feeling lingers, a fragile fracture in the veil between safety and the unknown. You close your eyes briefly, tasting the bitter hint of resin on your tongue, feeling the subtle vibration of something just beyond perception. Your heartbeat slows, aching in its steadiness, drawing you deeper into the ancient dance between past and present. Your hands return to the feline form, the quiet vessel of a life long faded, but fiercely remembered. Each stitch you weave is an echo, a soft threaded chant in the language of stone and dust. The needle slips through the cracked skin with a gentle resistance, the thread pulling shadows tight like the woven secrets entangled in your breath. Between the soft scrape of fabric and the faint crackle from the smoldering incense, a new presence stirs, faint but undeniable. The tense walls flutter briefly, as if stirred by a sigh from the earth itself, carrying with it the sharp edge of cold, like a blade drawn slowly across your skin. Your fingers freeze mid-motion, the thread poised between skin and air as the world narrows to a fragile pinprick of awareness. Outside the tent, the night has deepened into a thick cloak, heavy and suffocating. The chill creeps upward, touching bare ankles, winding like a serpent's tongue around the stiff linen fabric that guards your fragile refuge. The starless sky presses close, its vast emptiness reflected in the hollow silence folding around you. You feel the distant beat, slow, steady, of footsteps brushing against the surrounding dunes, whispered rhythms swallowed by the open desert. Your eyes drift once more to that dark seam where the hand had appeared. Now, nothing moves, yet the air remains taut with expectation, thickened by the scent of natron dust clinging coldly to your skin, the scent of incense curling in the heavy warmth. It is here, suspended between the known and the unseen, that the ritual's fragile pulse quickens imperceptibly. Your fingers tighten their hold on the thread, unwinding the last strands of certainty. The cat's hollow eyes remain fixed on an eternal midnight, their surface cracked and dry, like the desert floor scorched by relentless sun. You feel the slow, inexorable shift of time pressing outwards, pulling you into a deeper stillness, deeper memory. The fabric of the tent draws taut suddenly, a thin ribbon of tension unspooling the calm you had held so carefully. A breath escapes you, held long and low, mingling with the faint, distant beat of drums echoing somewhere beyond the night's reach, somewhere far away, unseen. The desert whispers secrets you are only beginning to understand. Then a flicker at the corner of your vision, subtle, almost shy, something small and deliberate. Your gaze sharpens, narrowing on the spot where shadow and light merge at the tent's entrance. There, poised just beyond the barrier, a pair of eyes gleam faintly, reflecting the waning. Incense glow like twin embers caught in a hushed breeze. Your breath stills, lodged between hesitation and the lingering thought that the boundary you have always known is shifting, fracturing like dry earth, cracking beneath the weight of unseen rain. You feel stark emptiness, growing colder, sharper, drawing the edges of this night closer. The cat's form beneath your fingers trembles almost imperceptibly, the last stitch in place like a whispered goodbye. The thread pulls taut one final time, and the pause afterward stretches thin as ancient silk. Outside the threshold, the eyes blink slowly, deliberately, unsettlingly human. The silence holds, pregnant with a secret waiting to unravel. Your eyes remain fixed on the faint gleam of those unwinking eyes beyond the thin fabric, the slow pulse of the night, stretching taut like a drawn bowstring around you. The incense smoke coils thicker now, wrapping the fragile space in a dense spiral, scented with resin and ancient ash. The subtle vibration of distant drums muffles beneath the silent swell of desert air, joining the whispers carried by the restless wind outside your fragile sanctuary. Your breath falters, slowed to a careful rhythm, shallow and deliberate, your chest rising with the patience only learned in long nights such as this. The dry grains of sand slip silently through your fingers once more, cold and unyielding, marking time quietly as the shadows deepen beyond the tent's fragile walls. A faint shiver slides across your skin, sparked not by cold alone, but by the weight of presence, something waiting beyond the known. Slowly your hand shifts, brushing the worn threads of linen, the faint abrasion a reminder of the boundary between safety and the unknown. Outside, the desert sky bleeds a slow gradient from burnt copper to velvety indigo, the stars still reluctant to claim the vast emptiness above. The air feels heavier now, thick with a silent tension that settles deep in your bones, an unspoken warning carried by the cool breath slipping beneath the tent's edges. You close your eyes for a fraction, feeling the dry, powdery natron dust pressing softly into your palm, its quiet grit anchoring you to the ritual, yet weaving you into the present moment's fragile thread. The cat's form beneath your fingers offers no comfort, its hollow shell a faded echo of life, fragile as cracked earth beneath relentless sun. Your movements resume with deliberate care, the needle piercing with a slow, steady patience that tightens the thin thread of memory wrapped softly around the silent vessel. The faint scrape returns, this time slower, more deliberate, like a hesitant footprint, folded into the breath of the night. Your heart answers with a quiet flutter, a steady tension humming beneath taut skin. You dare not break the stillness, not with a sudden motion or a sharp breath that might shatter the delicate weave of shadow and silence surrounding you. Instead, you let every detail stretch, the rough texture of the wood beneath your hand, the whisper of fabric nudged by something unseen beyond the tent, the coolness settling low around your ankles, a silent tide creeping with winter's slow insistence. The incense flickers as a final wisp curls upward, blending scents of earth, resin, and something darker, something like old stone and forgotten secrets. Your fingers fold the thread neatly as the last stitch locks with reverent precision, a closing fold that speaks more of farewell than triumph. The ritual, suspended between time and memory, holds in the slow pulse of fading light. Outside, the shadow retreats just enough to let moonlight spill in thin, fractured shards, catching on the edge of your weathered hands. The night holds its breath, thick and expectant, as the unseen watcher remains fixed beyond the veil, silent, patient, waiting for a moment that feels suspended at the very edge of possibility. Your gaze shifts, following a faint movement, a slow curling of fabric that betrays the presence lurking along the tent's mouth. Your pulse steadies, muscles tensing softly, but prepared with the quiet certainty of one who has lingered long beneath the desert's indifferent stars. You trace the outlines of your worn tools, the dull gleam of needle and thread now still, poised in solemn testimony. A breath escapes, slow and tremulous, blending into the rhythm of night. Your skin prickles as the temperature drops still more, the chill slipping through the cracks in sand and stone, crawling like invisible fingers up your shins. The desert seems to hold its vast silence tighter, as if watching with you, waiting for the fragile barrier to shift. The shadow at the threshold moves again, a slow, deliberate motion that catches the edge of your vision and holds it there. It is no longer merely the shape you imagined. Now it is a figure, small and still, its edges softened by the incense haze, but unmistakably watching. You do not flinch, only tighten your hold on the sacred thread woven between the past and the present. Time itself seems to compress, thick as molasses, as you become the stillness, the quiet keeper of mysteries, drawn from the lifeless form before you, and the silent figure before the veil. Every grain of sand, every shifting breath of air, every muted flicker of light presses in closer, binding you to the moment's delicate edge. Then a faint sound, nearly drowned in the chorus of night, breaks the endless hush. It is the whisper of something ancient, like the soft scraping of bone against stone, or the fragile sigh of a secret loosened from the long clutch of dust. The shadow stirs, revealing the slow curl of a hand trembling beneath the moon's pale gaze. Your breath catches, cool and razor sharp. The thread slips almost unnoticed between your fingers, the final vestige of certainty giving way as your eyes lock onto the pale, fragile hand curling through the slit like a silent invitation to step across an unseen line. In that suspended moment, the desert's weight folds upon you, heavy and unyielding. As the figure retreats, just enough to vanish into the blackness, leaving behind a quiet promise woven in dust and shadow, that what awaits beyond the night breaks the slow rhythm you have known. You remain utterly still, caught in the fragile space between fear and curiosity, the soft scrape of a second movement, just beyond perception, the faint stir of a presence no longer hidden, but waiting patiently for you to reply. You remain motionless, though your senses ripple like desert heat waves, playing tricks on your skin. The shadow at the tent's edge is still there, quiet as the dust that never settles, thick as the darkening sky, pressing close overhead. Your hand lingers over the worn needle, its cold metal, the steady anchor, amid the slow crawl of night. The faint scent of resin curls in lazy spirals, weaving through the tension like a whispered incantation. Beyond the fabric, the desert breathes low and timeless, its vast silence stretching without end. Your gaze shifts again to those pale fingers barely visible through the slit, a tentative invitation carved from shadow and breath. The air hums softly, heavy with unspoken questions, and you can feel the weight of time folding itself around the space between you. That quiet presence waits patiently, every inch etched with restraint and something older, something patient. Deliberately, you draw a slow breath, tasting the dry bitterness of burnt herbs and cooled earth. Your skin prickles as the night's chill snakes beyond the lip of the tent, wrapping your ankles in quiet whispers. The faint scrape of cloth stirs once more, and you know the barrier is thinner than before, the line between safety and the unknown fraying with every slow second. You return your focus to the fragile vessel beneath your hands. The cat's hollow form is a brittle map of memories, cracked and fragile, the natron powder settling softly, like scattered sand on the delicate skin. Your fingers move carefully, threading the needle through a tawny tear, pulling slow stitches that bind past and present like fragile bonds stretched thin. Each movement is deliberate, a reverent dance carved in silence. Outside, the desert grows colder, the wind weaving a low chant through the dunes. It carries distant drumbeats, measured and slow, echoes of a world far beyond this tent, beyond the quiet sanctuary of fire and shadow. The sound melts into the night, a steady pulse beneath the soft crackle of incense. Your heartbeat steadies into a slow drum, each beat a tether to this place, this moment suspended between worlds. Your senses sharpen, attuned to the faintest shift of air, the slightest tremor against the thin fabric. The shadow remains, no longer merely a shape, but something more, a patient watcher, cloaked in the night's embrace. As you continue your stitching, the thread pulls taut, encircling fragile skin with slow and solemn grace. The ritual's ancient rhythm hums softly through your veins, steady as the desert's pulse beneath endless stars. Your breath falls in measured waves, each inhale carrying the scent of dry earth and burning resin, each exhale fading into the waiting dark. Then, just beyond the edge of sight, movement, a breath's length away from revelation. The fingers shift, tracing the canvas with a slow deliberation that breaks the stillness like the first crack of dawn. Your breath catches, held quietly, your body tensed but calm, as the space between presence and absence narrows into a single thread of possibility. A subtle warmth flickers at your fingertips, the remnants of the day's sun folding softly into the cool night air. The faint glow of embers from the incense flickers against your palm, casting wavering shadows across the worn tools resting at your side. The needles glint, the curve of aged bone, the faint crackle of dried herbs. They all hold silent witness to the delicate balance you maintain between what is and what might come. Outside, the dunes shift imperceptibly under the breath of the desert wind. A distant howl threads through the darkness, low and mournful, stirring something deep and unspoken inside you. An echo of all the nights spent waiting and watching. A reminder that here, beneath the indifferent stars, time is both your greatest ally and your most patient adversary. You tighten your grip on the needle, the thread a fragile lifeline stretching between past and present. Your fingers work with slow, steady certainty, weaving silence and memory together in a pattern only you understand. The cat's form beneath your touch trembles barely, a faint shudder that might be the breath of something beyond life. The shadow narrows, a shape pressed closer to the tense opening, soft and still. You sense the presence lean in. The slit of fabric, pressed gently between fingers weathered by time. The air thickens, warm and cold all at once, as if suspended between sunlit days and starless nights. An unspoken tension coils tightly around you both, the fragile tether binding the watcher outside to the sacred ritual inside. In this fragile moment, the air itself waits, catching its breath, holding the pause that precedes change. Your heart beats with deliberate silence, a deep, steady rhythm that threads through every nerve ending. The night hums softly around you, a quiet symphony of shadow, sand, and whispered secrets. And then, from the darkness beyond the canvas, a single soft sound, a breath drawn slowly, deliberately, with the weight of ages folded into its softness. The faintest stir of fabric, the whisper of movement that carries the promise of unraveling everything known. Your eyes lock onto the shadow's edges as the tent fabric sways gently, the boundary between worlds trembling like the fragile web of a desert spider. In that motion, that almost imperceptible breath, you realize that this night no longer belongs to stillness alone. Something waits, patient, watching and poised to cross the thin line. And as your hands still, the thread taut between fingers, the shadow steps forward, revealing just enough to catch your gaze. Eyes wide and unblinking, gleaming with a cold fire that is older than the desert sands themselves. Your eyes linger on the gleam of those unblinking eyes, just beyond the delicate weave of the tent's fabric. A pale fire flickering in the fading glow of incense. The night seems to bend closer, folding itself tightly around you, while the shadows deepen into pools of velvet darkness. Your breath comes slow and steady, each inhale tasting faintly of resin and dry earth, a bittersweet blend that roots you to this fragile present. Your fingers, still poised with thread taut between them, feel the coarse roughness of the wooden table beneath, like a quiet anchor. The texture both grounding and familiar. Outside, the desert breathes in vast, unhurried rhythms, its silence so deep it presses against your skin. The shifting sand beyond the tent sighs softly, carried on the whispering wind that threads through dry herbs burning low, their smoke curling lazily toward the low ceiling. You release a measured breath and allow your gaze to flicker back to the small form resting on the table. The mummified cat. Its dried flesh is cracked and fragile, a brittle echo of life locked in time. The natron dust settles softly on your skin, clinging like ghostly grains of sand, cool and fine. Your hand moves with slow, deliberate care. Every stitch you weave is a silent chant, threading memory and ritual together in a dance older than the stones beyond the dunes. The gentle scrape at the edge of the tent returns, softer now, more hesitant, yet impossible to ignore. It stirs the air, stirring a fragile tension beneath your skin. You do not startle, but your senses sharpen, every muscle attuned to the slow unfolding of this unseen presence. The fabric ripples faintly, revealing just enough shadow to suggest a shape pressing closer, cloaked in patience and silence. Outside, the sky darkens to a deep indigo, the earliest stars shyly burning through the thick gathering dusk. The cool brush of night threads up from the sand, touching your ankles like whispered fingers tiptoeing across warm skin. You feel the air growing heavier, richer with scent, a blend of resin, dry earth, and something darker, more ancient. It coils delicately around the narrow chamber of the tent, wrapping you in its quiet mystery. Your fingers close gently around the needle, pulling the thread through the brittle skin once more with a steady patience born of endless repetition. The thread surrenders softly, the tension weaving a delicate bond between time and memory. The faint crackling of the incense matches the rhythm of your heartbeat, a duet of sound and silence stretched thin across the shadows. A subtle movement catches the corner of your eye. The shadow shifts, the slit in the fabric sighs softly, and a pale hand emerges slowly, its long fingers tracing patterns on the coarse canvas, as if reading an ancient script. Your breath catches, cool and deliberate, caught in the stillness that holds the night captive. The hand trembles faintly, like a leaf poised on a fragile branch, alive, yet still quiet, as the desert's vast emptiness beyond. You remain unwavering, your body still as stone, the measured pulse in your temples a balm against the creeping tension. The cold night air coils tighter, swirling around your ankles and rising slowly like a tide of silence reclaiming the earth. The faint drumbeat from distant horizons hums low beneath the desert wind, a reminder of time's slow march far beyond this sanctuary. The cat's hollow eyes, cracked and dry, faded, a map of fleeting life, draw your gaze. Your hands press on tirelessly, weaving a final stitch that snaps softly taut. The ritual, slow and sacred, pulses in quiet heartbeat beneath your skin, intertwined with the patient waiting that presses just beyond the canvas. The hand retreats briefly, lingering as though reluctant to break the fragile connection. The shadows fold in on themselves, the tent veil drawing tighter around your sanctuary. Yet the presence lingers, poised along the threshold between worlds. The night air thickens, heat and chill entwine and dance in expectant balance, like the slow turning of a page in a tome of dusty secrets. Your breath falls into a steady rhythm, slow and deep, as the delicate weave of thread slips through your fingers one last time. Every grain of natron dust clings coldly to your skin, every whisper of fabric brushing soundlessly under fingers weaves hesitance and resolve. Outside, the deep quiet grows, stretching out like a vast, empty well beneath the endless sky. The eyes reappear, luminous and unblinking, glowing faintly with that strange, cold fire that seems older than the desert sands themselves. Time itself feels suspended between the breaths you share in this moment, watcher and keeper entwined in silent understanding. Your skin prickles under the weight of this presence, a slow burn rising from your chest outward, warming, then fading into the cold folds of night. A sudden shift stirs the air, a slight rustle, soft as the pulse of a distant heart, just at the edge of hearing. The faint scent of something metallic draws at your senses, a whisper of something not quite remembered, yet intimately known. You tilt your head, eyes narrowing in slow, deliberate focus. The threshold between shadow and warmth trembles, a thread pulled taut between worlds. The pale fingers press a little farther into the tense mouth, the fabric yielding just enough to reveal a hint of movement, a slow, purposeful step forward. Your chest tightens, breath held in a balance of silent invitation and ancient caution. Outside, the desert sighs under a starless sky, the weight of unseen eyes settling heavy upon the sand. In that suspended breath, the hand withdraws, vanishing as quietly as it came. Yet the eyes remain, a beacon in the hollows of night, fixing you with an unyielding gaze that carries secrets you are only beginning to fathom. And in that tense stillness, you realize the slow rhythm of this night has changed forever. You hold your breath as the shadow retreats gently, folding back into the darkness just beyond the canvas. The night air settles once more, thick and cool, wrapping itself softly around your shoulders like a familiar cloak. Inside the tent, the incense burns low, its scent a quiet song of resin and earth that anchors you to this sacred space, this fragile moment between twilight and dawn. Your fingers linger over the thread, now resting loosely against the cracked skin of the cat. The final stitch lies beneath your touch, a silent testament to countless nights spent weaving life into silence. The fragile vessel before you holds more than just a body molded by time. It cradles stories, echoes, and a bridge between an ancient past and the present breath beneath your hands. Outside, the desert exhales a slow, steady sigh, its vast emptiness folding under a canopy of stars, tentative and shy. The wind hums softly, coaxing the sand to dance in gentle spirals that vanish before they reach the tent's edge. In this quiet, time feels stretched thin, like a thread pulled taut and ready to snap, but held firm by patient hands. You slowly exhale and allow yourself the stillness. The shadow that lingered now feels less a threat and more a visitor, one drawn by the ritual's whispered call, summoned by threads woven through centuries. The unseen presence waiting just beyond the veil seems to carry not fear, but a weight of solemn understanding, as if it, too, is part of the long dance between life and memory. Your gaze falls once again on the mummified cat, its hollow eyes fixed on nothing, yet watching everything. The decayed parchment of skin cracks beneath your touch, brittle as ancient rock, but it holds tight the essence of a once vibrant life. The natron powder still dusts your palms, a cold reminder of the sacred chemical alchemy that defies time's eroding hand. With a deliberate calmness, you complete the last stitch, the thread slipping through like a soft murmur, binding what was broken into a whole stillness. There is a quiet finality here, tempered by gentle reverence. The ritual's end, marking not an ending, but a transformation. The cat now rests, enclosed in its silent armor, still but preserved, a secret keeper beneath the shifting sands. Outside, the first cool shadows of night deepen, casting long indigos and purples over the undulating dunes. The stars whisper ancient lullabies, their soft light bathing the desert in a tender glow. The air inside the tent cools, carrying the faint scent of herbs mingled with the earthly breath of the desert, a balm that soothes your skin and steadies your heart. You lean back slowly, the rough canvas supporting your weary frame as a gentle tiredness settles in. Your fingers trace a final pattern over the worn wood of the table, now holding the tools of your craft silent and still. Outside, the desert's soft murmur settles into a quiet hum, a lull stretching into the infinite, a promise that the world keeps turning in its slow, patient rhythm. The shadow that haunted the edges of your vision feels gone now, not vanished, but folded back into the vastness, like a secret carried home. Whatever it was that watched, waited, and traced the boundary between worlds remains a part of this night's silent song, an echo mingling with the steady pulse of the earth beneath your feet. You close your eyes, breathing in the thickened air one last time. The warmth of the burned resin fades gently into a cool calm, the lingering taste of dry earth and ancient smoke grounding you to the present moment. There is peace here, a fragile equilibrium restored between the past you honor and the present you inhabit. The ritual complete, the night unfolds its quiet wings. Time folds softly into itself, and you are held lightly in that gentle twilight between wakefulness and sleep, between memory and release. The steady rhythm of your breath becomes a soft lullaby, inviting calm to settle like dust on the dunes, slow, tender, and eternal. And as the desert winds whisper their timeless song beyond your shelter, you feel the weight of the world grow lighter, the threads of the night weaving a final tapestry of stillness to cradle you until dawn. The silence deepens, warm and hushed, the last glow of ember fading into perfect night. Your heartbeat slows, steady and sure, a timeless drum beneath the vast vault of stars. At last, you let yourself drift, wrapped in the quiet promise of endings that are also beginnings, embraced by the desert's eternal hush.